All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Spigot Office Hours. My name is Scott Kinnear. Today I'm joined by Jack Brook, Technical Account Specialist and Customer Success Guru here at Spigot. In this session, Jack's going to be discussing user attributes and specifically how to add those and use them within your instance. Before we get started, as usual, some quick housekeeping. At any time, feel free to use the Q&A and chat features via the Zoom interface to ask questions in real time, or you could raise your hand and I'll unmute your line so that you can ask it using audio. Of course, this session will be recorded for those unable to join us, and it will be available in the Help Center within 24 hours of the close of the session. All right. With that said, Jack, it's all yours.
All right, thank you, Scott. Give me one moment here and I'll start sharing my screen. Ooh, that was not the screen I wanted to bring up. Apologies. All right. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
All right, so I'll go ahead and start presenting. All right, so thanks for the introduction, Scott. My name is Jack Brook, Technical Account Specialist here at Spigot. And I'll be leading today's office hours on user attributes, how we use them, and what we can do with them. To provide a quick agenda, we'll be defining user attributes first of all. And then after that, we'll be moving into how user attributes are passed into the Spigot software and how we identify them. And then after that, we'll go through some examples on how we can use attributes to further your Spigot example. And then at the very end, we'll have a Q&A session on user attributes. So before we take a deep dive into user attributes, it's always good to define our terms. So at Spigot, we define a user attribute as a quality or a feature regarded as a characteristic or inherent part of a user's profile. At the very bottom, we have an example. So in this example, name, location, company, department, and position are all attributes that are a part of my user profile. So my name, Jack Brook, that's a user attribute. My location is a user attribute as well. And essentially everything that makes up a user profile, we can define as an attribute. So that leads into the question, how do we transfer or how do we pass user attributes into the Spigot software? There are two methods in which attributes are entered into Spigot. The first is an SSO integration. Now, when an SSO integration is made between Spigot and our business partners, essentially we're going to be transferring attributes that are being tracked in their Active Directory and are going to be shared with the Spigot site. And as long as that Active Directory is kept up to date, every time a user clicks into their Spigot site or logs into Spigot, their profile will automatically update. So an example would be if I were to be promoted here, the next time I would log into the site, my new job title will be updated as the job title would have been updated in my company's Active Directory. So with SSO, as long as the Active Directory is kept up to date, Spigot will automatically update users' profiles with attributes each time they are logged in. Now, the second method in which attributes are entered into Spigot is through a user upload document. Now, with this process, you can manually import a user upload document or spreadsheet to include the additional attributes you would like each profile to contain. Now, what's different about this in SSO is that you'll have to file a ticket with our support team and let them know which attribute fields you would want to add to the Spigot profile so that our team can build them out on the back end and map them properly when you complete the upload. Now, the difference between the user upload and SSO is that this will not automatically update per each user login. So if someone were to receive a promotion, you would have to update your user attribute document and then re-upload it back into the Spigot system or software to maintain a current state of the user attributes and profiles. So there's a bit of manual bookkeeping, so to say, with the user upload document, but it accomplishes the same goal as SSO, which is it keeps user attributes up to date on the Spigot software. Now, there's two main cases in which we can use user attributes to further your Spigot program. And the first one is granting an access to challenges or communities by user attribute. So this is a popular use case for using user attributes. I've done a few challenges myself where I've permissioned it by user attribute. where we can launch challenges or communities and grant permission to a large or small group of users, depending on what user attributes we want to pass through. So for example, if the sales team would like to run a challenge with users that are only located in that business unit, we would set it up so that the system would only let in users with that attribute. So the way that we would do this is that we would go from the admin menu, we would click on the general settings dropdown, click on the setup settings from that drop-down menu, go to user access and change that access to private user attribute. And from there, we'll select the attribute header. In this case, it would be business unit. We would click enter, or not enter, we would enter in what business unit we would want to allow in, click update, and then before we submit these changes, there is a link at the bottom of this page where you can preview what users will have access after the change has been implemented. So if we want to make sure that we're only letting in a certain amount of users, we can always double check using the preview link. I know this may be a little hard to visualize, so don't worry, I do have a screenshot of what this looks like after this slide. But before I get to that, I do want to point out that you can permission challenges and communities not by one, but by many attributes if you want to narrow the group down further. So in this case, if we find that the business unit of the sales team is too large, we could add another attribute for location and kind of narrow down the group that are that'll be granted access to this challenge. So it's always good to think about how you would use attributes to create group-only challenges and kind of what that would look like for your program and how you would use it in this case. So this is a screenshot that should help us visualize this a bit better. As you can see at the top, we've changed our access to private user attribute. We've selected that the attribute we want to use is the business unit. And over here, we've entered in sales, and the expression grouping is business unit is sales. So it's kind of a logical statement that the system will read, and it'll say, we'll only let in users that have the business unit of sales. And then clicking on that preview users link will bring up a window that shows you all the users that fall into this category where their business unit is sales. So if you look over to the right where it says sales, there's a plus icon. And if you click on that, you'll be able to add multiple attributes to permission the challenge or the community. And when we add more attributes to permission by, we'll see this expression expand. So what we can do is we can say if we add another one, it'll show up as B. And if we add in location, it'll say the expression group will be business unit is sales. And location is San Francisco in this example. So we can add more attributes and kind of build out that expression statement. Now, the second popular use case for using attributes is being able to identify which users are participating in challenges and how they are participating. It's very helpful in identifying which groups or locations are participating the most versus the least. You know, never underestimate the power of a competition. You can create incentives by pitting office locations against each other, see who could win an incentive or a prize. I don't recommend publicly shaming the one that loses, but you never know. In that case, then the next challenge, they will participate more. So by using reportings, we can see who is which groups are participating the most and which groups may need some more incentives or more encouragement to engage in the challenge. So for an example, the innovation team here ran a global challenge and they would like to identify how many users from the human resource department participated and from what parts of the world they were located in. So this involves using Insights, our reporting tool. So we would recommend going to the user activity report and adding the attribute line of business and country. And then by exporting the report, we'll be able to filter and identify your users or the users that you are looking for. So this is referring to the report that we're talking about. We've added in the line of business as well as the country description. So on this user activity report, we can now see who from human resources participated, as well as what was their location of country when they were participating in the challenge. And of course, what's helpful with Insights is that we can also modify reports. So if a typical chart, or not chart, but if that standard report view is a bit hard to look at, we can also modify that to to be a pie chart or another visual chart. So the two most, just to quickly recap, the two most popular features of using user attributes would be permissioning communities and challenged by either location, business unit, whatever attribute you would like, as well as creating reports to see what groups are engaging the most and what groups are engaging the least, kind of where they're engaging and how often they are engaging as well. All right, so that wraps up my office hours on user attributes. I'll now open the floor to any questions.
We have one question from Carrie Klein. Carrie, you're trying to follow along on the portal and looking for the menu item. If you don't mind, are you talking about the user attributes menu item? And if it's easier, I can unmute your line there, Carrie. While we're waiting for Carrie to oh, here we go. Hey, Carrie, I will unmute you right now. All right, Carrie, you should be able to talk now. You may need to unmute your side in your Zoom user interface. Yes, Lisa, we will put this recording along with the presentation up in the office hours article, which you probably already familiar with, but you'll also get a link to it tomorrow morning.
I found us. You can hang that up. Hey, I found our audio.
Sorry about that. Can you hear us now?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Probably mute us again.
Oh no. Can you send them another say hey?
We can hear you guys.
There you go.
There you go.
Can you hear us now?
Yep.
Yeah, loud and clear.
I think we're good now. Sorry about that.
No problem. We can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, we I don't know. We were dialed in and now we're not. That slide perfectly answered my questions. Thank you. I don't know how I missed it before. I've got a couple other questions about user administration. Where do you look to see how many licenses we've earned and how many we still have?
Sure, great question.
Great question.
think we got a little echo there. I'm just going to hit mute while I answer this, and I'll unmute you again. So within the user management panel in administration, you can do a search for users that are enabled or disabled. Basically, enabled and disabled means they can or they cannot access the instance. So typically the way that most contracts are written up, and I'm speaking in generalities here for efficiency's sake, we would say something like, if you have a user on the instance who's enabled and who could access the site, that would be considered a licensed user. And once that individual has been disabled or marked as disabled in the system, then that individual would no longer be consuming a licensed seat.
That perfectly answers that question. Thank you.
Great, my pleasure.
I've got a pretty long list of questions. If you feel that I'm taking up too much time and it's out of the scope of this webinar, feel free to shut me down and just say, hey, we'll cover that later. Do you want me to list them off now, or do you want to finish up and then we'll see where, and I'll see what it gets answered by your class?
Now is a great opportunity to ask any questions that you want.
Okay, so the spigot licensing is 180 days. As we said before, our concern is that we have a large event of 400 people, we give out 400 licenses, we finish the challenge, we move on to our next event, which is likely going to be 4 days later, and then we bring in another 400 people, we give out licenses, we finish that challenge, and then repeat, oh, we're out of licenses. How do we deal with that? Because remember, a lot of our customers are military, or maybe they're people that are only in the country for a few days, so we want them to be able to access the wonders of Spigot, but we don't want to have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on licenses just because, you know, we have such a rotating group of people.
Sure. Yeah. So let me give you some options here. I would say in most cases, it sounds like you guys have a bit of a nuance there, but in most cases we have somewhat of a persistent audience where as challenges roll on and roll off, yeah, you definitely see a bulk of engagement and usage. But in many cases, a lot of those individuals, a percentage of those individuals are coming back and continuing to participate, not only in other challenges, but maybe an always-on environment, or coming back to get updates on the ideas from a specific challenge. If you are truly just running these time challenges and then disconnecting your audience and opening up a new one, engaging them, disconnecting your audience, the best way to manage that would to be going into your, again, user management panel from the admin page there, and identifying the individuals who no longer need access and manually disabling those. Now that's a administration, nightmare in some cases. So we have some clients who have actually used our API to automate that process. I'll give you a quick example, and we can talk about if this fits your use case or not. But for example, many of our clients have the API script written into their HR process. So that, let's say, for example, every 14 days, HR kicks off a bunch of scripts that say, hey, these 20 individuals have churned, they're no longer with the organization. Make sure you go disable them in identity management and PeopleSoft and all the IT systems and remove their email. And hey, by the way, one of those connections is into Spigot, where they actually will go and automatically disable that user, hence freeing up the license. So that would be utilizing our API to automate it. Otherwise, it's, unfortunately, it's a manual process. The last thing I'll say is, depending on your scenario, we may be able to get creative with licensing as well. So if neither of those other options work for you, the technical options, you may want to get with your account director to see what they might be able to do some flex licensing, given that you're kind of rolling people on and off on a challenge by challenge basis. Does that help at all?
That led directly into my second question. How would there be anything wrong with us just having a, let's call it a warfighter account 01 through 0400? So 400 of our licenses just roll through people. So they pick up a knob, they do a challenge, those people go, and I just, as they roll in, hey, you're warfighter number 1, you're warfighter number 2, you're warfighter number 3. Would that be a problem?
That would not. that would not be a licensing problem that I'm aware of. Now I'm far removed from sales. In my opinion, that's a great thing. I don't have to worry about this type of stuff. So I would say I don't think that's going to be a problem at all. But here's what that would cause. You'd lose a lot of the intrinsic motivation that actually gets people to come in and submit their ideas. For example, being viewed as a thought leader, wanting that recognition, feeling like they're a stakeholder, a part of something larger, getting visibility to their colleagues and leadership based on their contributions within the platform. So you would lose out on a lot of those intrinsic motivators, and I think it would make it more difficult for you to sustain a program long term, because in essence you'd be completely anonymous. The other thing that it would cause, if you've gone to any chat forum on the internet, anonymity can definitely lead to some undesirable commenting and people kind of venting more on the emotional side and less on the logical side. So anonymity does cause some maybe some unprofessional comments to come out as well. Just something else to keep in mind.
That's fine, thank you. And I'll make sure with Luke that that's not going to be an issue license-wise.
Perfect.
But I think it really does answer the question. Fortunately for us, most of our customers that are going to be involved in this don't want to be known at all. So it makes that kind of easy. My next question is, can you do pairwise between two kind of campaigns? So an example would be, let's say we have an option of building widget A or widget B. We don't have money for both, but we want our crowdsourcing people to decide which one they feel would be most impactful. Can we do that and say, okay, this is what I want you to pairwise between?
Yeah, good question. I'll grab this one, Jack. Let me know if you have anything to add here. Would value your perspective. So currently, there's no way to automatically say, hey, include these 2 or 3 or 4 challenges in the same pairwise event. Meaning, you would have to either one, create a new challenge and then move or copy those ideas over that you wanted to compare widget A, widget B, widget C, or you could have a challenge. Let's say you have a challenge that already exists. You could move ideas into that existing challenge and then perform pairwise there. The considerations to make are you can only run pairwise once per challenge. So if you've already done it once, my second tactic would not work. You'd have to create a whole new challenge. And the second thing is consider that, once you get a bunch of ideas in there, the pairings grow pretty quickly. So you typically want to limit it to 20 to 40 or so ideas. Jack, did you have anything to add there? Maybe there's something I'm not thinking of.
No, you're all good, Scott.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you. License.
Yeah. So,
We had another one for you. This is gonna be Carrie.
so can we track campaigns across campaigns in a way, like, let's say we want to know if group 1 and how much group 1 and that person, that user is using in both campaigns. Can we see that interaction that's going on? I believe that's what that question was in regards to.
I think the more thing is, let's say we have a group of users that are all from AFSOC, and we want to see what does AFSOC normally vote towards. This is more of an analytic style question. So so that way I can kind of break out my users and go, hey, these users tend to vote for kinetic widgets. These users tend to vote for RF widgets. These users tend to vote for water-based widgets. I don't know.
Okay, so let me unpack this one a little bit. We can definitely look at typical participation levels across challenges. So for example, if you wanted to baseline folks, how often do they typically come in? Once someone comes in, how often do they typically vote across all of your challenges or your campaigns, as I think you're calling them? Absolutely. That's fairly straightforward to do. It would just be an instance level report. So right now, for example, when you go into your dashboard, your kind of default or your primary report that I would recommend is the challenge management report. And that simply has a challenge filter, or in your case, I think a campaign filter, so that you can narrow down those results by campaign. If you go in there into insights and duplicate that report and just remove that filter, it's now an instance level report. And you can start to look at aggregated data to understand true usage across, all partners or all clients or all campaigns. So that part's pretty straightforward. Now the second part gets a little bit more difficult. So are you able to say, hey, this type of person or this type of individual with this specific attribute tends to vote for ideas belonging to, I don't know, emerging technology group versus a incremental type process improvement idea? You could do that today, but you would really have to export that data and then go push it through like Tableau or some kind of analytics engine. Now, with that said, with the release of our new version that just came out in October, we've introduced natural language processing, and you're kind of moving down the same direction that we are, which is once we begin building that library and that database, we can start to uncover some of these things for you, so that you don't have to go port it into an analytics engine, but rather we can start to surface some of that stuff to you. So today, it's going to be an export-import to get those types of insights. In tomorrow's world, that's kind of what we're trying to do for you. I don't know if I addressed that completely. Feel free to elaborate if I missed a point.
The only thing you kind of left out is, do you guys have a timeline on what that is? And I know that's a terrible question to ask. I'm not trying to nail you to the wall. I'm just asking if you guys have a projected timeline with that. You're absolutely right. I can export it and do 100 different programs and get it to work, but we really are looking for that all in one shot.
Yeah, understood. I don't have a timeline. I do have a roadmap deck that I just got from our product team this morning. So bear with me one second and let me see if I can speak to this without getting in too much trouble. Okay, so I'm looking at the next version.
It says 12 participants. Am I keeping anyone that's with these crazy software specific questions? But I only see us as the attendee.
No, nobody else is typing questions, so I think you're good.
Okay.
I don't see matching users to voting behaviors or supporting behaviors. What I do see coming up early next year is using NLP algorithms to help make challenge topic suggestions. And then in a little bit later, Q2, Q3, I see using NLP around crowd and concept mining. And then there is one bullet here that says user data analytics. So what I'm going to do, user data analytics. Let me get some more content around what that is to see if it addresses exactly what you're looking for. And then I can email you guys. I see Carrie's logged in. Is that a good email to use to respond to this?
Yeah, both Carrie and Mike A are good at emails.
Got it. Cool. Let me get back to you on that one. I see something here, but it's, in normal software roadmap terms, it's pretty vague. Let me see what kind of details I can get.
Okay. Give me 1 second. I'm going to go around the room, see if anyone else has any questions.
Sure. Mary, also you had a question, but I did notice that you've logged off, so I'll reach out to you in regards to Zoom being used for all office hours. I do think we use Zoom for all office hours. I'm not 100% sure what we use together, our client perspectives, besides our directly through our customer success team. So I'm going to reach out to Mary afterwards because I see she had to drop off and get some more clarification there. Also, Terry, I see that you've raised your hand and you're patiently waiting there. I'm going to go ahead and unmute your line now, so you should be able to chime in whenever it's convenient for you.
Hi. I don't actually have a question. I was just listening in. We're just starting to use Spigot, so everything that everyone's talking about is very important for me to learn. So
Oh, great. Okay, I'm sorry. I just saw the little hand there, so sorry to put you on the spot.
no worries.
All right, last quick question from us. And I don't know what the original schedule for this webinar. I came in a second late. Do you guys have a video, or is it possible? I've never actually seen Spigot run end to end. If that's not the scope of this, let me know. Send me a video later, or we'll do it later. But a lot of the questions that I get asked by the people we work with, I really would be answered if I could go, okay, well, you do this, then you do this, then you do this, then you do this. I understand how an ideation session works, but I'd like to see how Spigot handles that end to end. Is that well out of this scope, or is that something that you can just send me a video and I can watch at my own time?
Yeah, let me include just for sake of our time today. Let me go ahead and include either a demonstration, or what I think might be even better is getting Luke and someone from the demo team to just sit down with you and really go through the entire life cycle. You know, as you probably already know, Mike, there's with customized software comes some complexity. So there's a number of ways to do this, and there's no one right way to do end-to-end innovation to or ideation to implementation. We have a perspective, and we're more than happy to share that with you. But when it really gets into the details, it comes down to each individual client. So for example, what you guys do to prototype, to create business cases, to test assumptions, to validate these concepts, to validate a marketplace, and then to prototype that and iterate on it, that's probably completely different than what a MetLife or a Johnson & Johnson or a CMIC does. So we typically will build the software, or our clients build the software around their existing processes, but more than happy to at least give you our perspective, our kind of vanilla perspective based on what we see all of our clients doing, so that you can get a better idea of one, what are our clients doing, and two, how might you use the software to customize it to your own needs.
And that's absolutely perfect. And like I said, if they've got a canned video they want to just fire up, I'm fine with that.
Sure.
I'm just looking for just little ideas here, just ways to quickly answer questions. Because the briefs I keep getting are like, oh, it's gonna save the world, and there's gonna be clouds and rainbows, and I'm like, there's gonna be some roadmaps. There's gonna be some bumps.
Gotcha. Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's plenty of unicorns and rainbows, but that's definitely, those are rose-colored glasses. There's hard work that goes along with any initiative.
That is the perfect quote. You absolutely nailed it. And I think that's all we have. So if you don't have any more slides, anybody else want to grab anything? Ooh, silence is consent. Do you guys have anything else for us?
No, thanks for joining. So there are a number of office hours that are already recorded and out there. This is actually the 10th one. And in the previous session, if you go out to the Help Center, just type in office hours. In the previous one, we talk about two topics that you may be interested in, Mike. One is developing a challenge pipeline. What do you look for in a good sponsor and a good challenge topic, and how do you really help your organization go after the important stuff? And then included in that is a kind of a advisory presentation, if you will, that you can download it. And that helps you explain what is crowdsourced innovation, how does it work, not even necessarily specific to Spigot, just in general. We tend to find that, especially in organizations that have been around for a really long time, sometimes you may have executive leadership who's just not quite on board with this whole internet crowdsourcing thing. Having that conversation can definitely be difficult. So we've put together some materials to help promote that, and that might help in conjunction with the demo that you're seeking. Hopefully I didn't just offend someone in the room.
Right now.
Great, and thanks for all the questions. That's what these office hours are for. We do go through a topic, but after that, it's kind of fair game. We just open it up. So thanks for coming with some questions. Thanks for joining this time, and hopefully we see you next time as well.
Hey, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. Software signing off.
Sounds good. We'll talk soon. I'll be in touch. I'll continue to hold on the line here. I see we still have a few people online, so if something pops into your head, feel free to jump on, and we will get you sorted. I'll hang on until I see everyone drop, and then we'll gracefully bow out.